I mean, listen to this engine, unbelievable. Absolutely amazing. It sounds great. Such a fantastic car. 8,000 RPM, third gear, absolutely amazing. Hey guys, welcome back to the BMWBLOG YouTube channel and welcome to Georgia. We're actually on our way to Florida for the Amelia Concord Elegance, but the reason for the video today is actually to give you a look at the new BMW M4 G82 next to another very special BMW. This is the E92 M3 Lime Rock edition. I'm going to be test driving the car today, but before I do that, I wanted to kind of give you an overview of both designs, maybe talk a little bit about the E92 M3, and then maybe you can also let me know at the end in the comments below which one you prefer. So let's start maybe with the new G82 M4, fire orange color. This one is a 6-speed standard, so makes about 474 horsepower from a 6-cylinder 3-liter engine. The sticker price on this car, with all the options and the BMW individual color and all of that, it's a staggering $96,000. So remember that number because it's quite important for what I'm going to tell you next. E92 M3 Lime Rock Edition. There are only 200 units ever made. It was only sold in the US. The MSRP was about $70,000, and actually a spec, this one, it's $77,000. Yet, recently on Bring a Trailer, a 6-speed manual E92 M3 Lime Rock Edition sold for $95,000. So essentially, nearly 10 years later, their car cost just as much as the G82 M4. A little bit about the design right now. So as you can see right here, significantly different. The new M4, it's more of a GT car versus a sports coupe. And of course, it's bigger. I mean, that's been the trend with all the new generations BMW. So bigger car, and of course you have this really massive front grille. I mean, it stands out everywhere you go. And it's one of those things, you either love it or hate it, but it's there and it looks quite stunning, especially in the combination of all black, the carbon fiber, and this spectacular fire orange. If you look at the power dome hood, it's a little bit different than what we're used to on the previous generations. And as you can see in the E92 M3 Lime Rock, it's got a totally different design, some nice air vents and the iconic power dome hood. But let's talk a bit more about the E92 M3 Lime Rock Edition, because that's the car that I'm very excited to drive today. It was the only BMW M3 ever built with a V8 engine. So it's a 4-liter, makes about 414 horsepower. But the best part really is the revs go all the way up to 8,300. So that's impressive. And honestly, I had a chance to take the car around here just a little bit before we set up for this photo shoot, and it put a smile on my face instantly. Of course, being a special limited edition, only 200 units, BMW had to do a little bit more. So they have this special carbon fiber package for the E92 M3, which gives you a front spoiler carbon fiber and of course a rear spoiler carbon fiber as well. There were some changes done to the steering, so it's a lot stiffer, it gets a lot more road feedback, even though it doesn't need that. We're gonna talk about that as I drive the car. It's a mechanical steering. Other upgrades includes some tweaks to the suspension. So the ride height, it's about 0.4 inches lower, so that's about 10 millimeters. So that should give you a sportier ride than the regular E92 M3 Competition, because this is really just based on the regular E92 M3 Competition model. Inside, you're getting Alcantara steering wheel, carbon fiber, Alcantara all around. It comes either with a 6-speed manual or the 7-speed dual clutch, and that's the one that's inside this car. Another interesting tidbit on this car, it's the lightweight titanium exhaust. It's actually made by Akrapovic, and it doesn't only sound better, but it's also lighter. Of course, if we're talking about performance, they're quite different, right? 474 horsepower, 414. This car, it's extremely fast. We've tested the car 0 to 60 in about 3.1, 3.2 seconds. If you add the xDrive, it's even faster. And the E92 M3 goes from 0 to 60 in about 4.5 seconds with DCT or 4.6 with a 6-speed manual. Of course, it's not all about the straight line performance, and if you take the E92 M3 on track, you will have a lot of fun. That engine is just beautiful, revving up really high, and that sound, it is quite unique, and that's something that I definitely missing in a BMW. So with that being said, I'm gonna jump behind the wheel of the E92 M3 Lime Rock Edition. I'm gonna tell you how it drives and share a few other interesting things about the car, so please join me. All right, so now it's time to drive the E92 M3 Lime Rock Edition. You've seen the introduction, we've talked about the specs, we've talked about the design, but then of course, it is a lot more interesting when you get behind the wheel to drive this car. So let me start off maybe with another interesting thing in the Lime Rock Edition. Steering wheel. It's got this nice blue indicator right here at the top. Basically, it's similar to what I've seen on the M Performance steering wheels, but I guess the most interesting tidbit on this one, it's really the flat bottom steering wheel. So from what I know, it is the first time they've used it in an E92 M3 or E90 M3, certainly the first one in the US. It just makes for a really interesting design combination. Alcantara all around, suede. It's your typical E92 steering wheel though, so it's not like the new ones where they're quite beefy and maybe a little bit too beefy. This one, it's got like the really perfect size and shape. Of course, what I like about this interior, that it's so simple, right? You don't need all the whistles and bells. I mean, driver oriented, very cool, very BMW. Nice DCT shifter here, simple, doesn't take a lot of space, just goes with the overall minimalistic and simple look here. Very small iDrive controller, you don't really need this huge iDrive knob right there. Of course, you got the adjustments for the power, EDC, and to turn the DSC off. You have this one in the middle right here, this button right here, that you can use to adjust the transmission setting as well. When it comes to the seats, once again, they've done a fantastic job in this car. Plenty of side bolster support. You've got a nice lumbar support as well. They kind of hug you nicely. Even when you try to corner a little bit, they just keep you tight in there. So it's always a nice feeling. They're also perfect for longer distances. I've been driving the car quite a bit today, and I still feel, you know, extremely comfortable in them. So let's talk about how it drives. You can hear the sound maybe, glorious sound. Of course, some of that comes from the, you know, custom special exhaust system installed on this car. As I mentioned earlier, titanium, made by a Krapovich. Aside from the high revving, you know, the S65, it truly is a marvelous piece of engineering. I mean, that V8 definitely don't see today in many sports cars, and that's something that I totally miss in a BMW model, and especially in an M3. You know, naturally aspirated will always sound a little bit better than the turbos. Of course, there are some advantages to the turbo engines, but if I were to pick one, I'll always pick the naturally aspirated unit. It's quite responsive. I like the throttle response on this Lime Rock Edition. Of course, the steering, as I mentioned, they've done some work on the steering ratio, and it feels, I mean, it's the mechanical steering, right? So it's the very same one that I have in my 1M, and it's completely different than what you get today with the EPS steering. Lots of road feedback. Honestly, it's really smooth pavement right here, and I can still get a lot of road feedback, and that's just something that I absolutely miss in a mechanical based steering wheel. DCT, 7-speed DCT in this one, dual clutch transmission. Of course, you could have purchased the 6-speed manual in this model, but the DCT, it is absolutely amazing in the E90, E92 generation, and it's always been my first choice. Of course, if you want to have one of the pure M3s, you can definitely, you could have definitely opted for the 6-speed manual. Shifting it's extremely smooth, extremely precise, very rapid shifts, and that's something that you might have experienced yourself in just normal E90, E92 cars. Doesn't have to be a particular special edition like this Lime Rock. The engine, as you can hear right now, I'm at close to 4,000 RPMs, and it just wants to pull higher and higher. Only 5th gear, so there is a lot of room. Absolutely, if you have the chance to bring those revs almost close to the red line, do it, because that's where the engine sounds really the best, and that's where he has the best performance. All right, so you're probably able to hear the engine sound right now. Absolutely amazing. I mean, how cannot fall in love with this car. I mean, unbelievable, absolutely amazing car. As far as the settings in the car, there are 4 systems, so you can adjust the throttle sensitivity, the adaptive dampers, the stability control, and the power steering assist. So you can play around with those settings to make the car a lot sportier or a lot softer if you want to. The throttle response to the steering can be set at normal or sport. Naturally, there was a lot of work done on the suspension on the E90 and E92 M3, and that applies to the Lime Rock edition as well. Basically, when it comes to the damper controls, BMW actually calls them EDC. You can adjust that. So there are 3 settings: on, off, and MDM. So MDM really stands for M Dynamic Mode. And basically, it's the most aggressive driving mode that you can get inside this generation. So of course, it's not going to turn off all the controls, and in case you get in trouble, it will actually save you. The car comes with a rear differential. Actually, BMW, I believe, calls it the M variable differential lock, and that adjusts the lock-in ratio based on the speed difference between the rear wheels. So the E92 M3, it's really a lot more than just the engine. The overall package is so well balanced. You feel like every component plays nicely together with the next one. So you never feel like the car is lacking in certain areas. Of course, it also makes for a fantastic track weapon. We've seen the E90 and E92 M3 being part of multiple races, amateur and pro races around the world. It truly was a great base car for any racing competition. I mean, listen to this engine, unbelievable. 6,000 RPM, I'm not even close to that. 3rd gear and I'm already at 7,000 RPM. Absolutely amazing. It sounds great. Such a fantastic car. 95,000 might seem like a lot of money for an old car, 8-9 years old, but I believe this car will go up in value even more. The overall chassis is also extremely balanced. I'm not gonna have a chance to really push the car in corners or even go on a track. It is extremely composed. It feels so stiff. And if I remember correctly, about 80% of the parts on the E90 generation or E92 M3 were different from the base 3 Series car. So clearly they've put a lot of work into making this the ultimate M3. So in a nutshell, this is the BMW E92 M3 Lime Rock Park Edition. That's the official name. As I said, 200 units were made. It was sold out quite quickly back in 2013, I believe. And recent listings on Bring a Trailer and other auction websites, brought in prices around $95,000, $96,000, and that was, I believe, for a 6-speed manual. So I'm fairly confident that in the next few months, with all this, crazy used car market that we have today, I believe the price on this particular model will increase even more, considering that it's so limited and considering it's special compared to the regular E92 M3. I think the entire generation E90 and E92 M3 has not peaked yet in price, and I feel like they're going to keep increasing over time. So before I end this review, let me tell you how it compares to the new generation G82. Clearly the new car will be always the faster car, the more modern car. It will have all the technology bits that you would expect from a car in 2022, but if you're looking for that analog, that classic, that old feel BMW, then I would say you can't really go wrong with the E90, E92. Now, if you're into newer tech, if you want the latest iDrive system, over-the-air updates, faster car, all of that, then naturally the G82 M4 will always be the better choice. When it comes to driving experience, they are extremely different. This one feels more of a sports coupe, so I'm not sure if I can explain that, but it just feels like a really tight package, extremely balanced, as I mentioned earlier, and it just reminds you of those classic sports coupes. Now, the G82 M4, on the other hand, it's more of a GT car, not only because of its size, definitely larger and bigger than this one, but also the way it drives. It's got those driving modes that can range from very comfortable in comfort mode to like extremely aggressive when you go to Sport Plus, or even further than that if you turn off all the nannies. So Very, very different, driving comparison. You can't really compare the two cars. It's all really based on what you want from your M3 or M4. All right, so I just came back from my ride with the E92 M3 Lime Rock edition, and as you can see, I'm still smiling. Let me tell you this, if you do have the chance to buy an E92 M3, please do so. The car, it's probably a classic today, and if it's not, it is absolutely a future classic. And beside that, it is such a fun car to drive. It's something different than what you see today. It is absolutely phenomenal. Of course, prices are climbing on the E92 M3, so you might not find one that's quite affordable today, but I have a feeling they're gonna go a lot higher. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, this car sold for nearly $100,000, and I don't think that's the end of it. So, with that being said, please let me know, as I said earlier, which car you prefer. Do you prefer the more modern BMW M4, or you want to stay true to the roots of BMW M3 and pick the E92? If it was my choice today, I would definitely go with the more limited, edition Lime Rock. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our channel, and I will see you very soon. Thank you.